Amal Kiran wrote the most beautiful introduction in the second printing of Savitri, 1950, 54. And what he did was he quoted the last lines that Sri Aurobindo dictated to Nirodharan. The very last lines. Begins with, as a star uncompanioned moves in heaven, unastonished by the immensities of light, moving infinity by its own force, the great are strongest when they stand alone. And then he speaks that Savitri may have to stand alone. And he says, even towards the end, even if the heart fails, and only are death and night, God given, her strength can stand against all. Can you find it?
Is it in the Aurobindo?
No, it's in Narad's final speech before he leaves the earth. It is
Is it in
book 6,
Yeah, book 6.
canto 2.
Oh, it's
Yeah,
not.
page 462.
Okay, you could read it for us?
No, it's actually, there's only Canto 1.
Hmm?
Canto 2 is not
You can
there.
read from here.
Can we start it?
Yes, please.
Its lonely universe is their
Rendezvous.
rendezvous.
What is a rendezvous? Where we get together, right? So the lonely universe is their rendezvous.
A day may come when she must stand unhelped on a dangerous brink
Brink
of
of
the
the
world's
world's doom and hers.
carrying the world's future on her lonely breast, carrying the human hope in her heart left soul, to conquer or fail on a last desperate march, alone with death and close to extinction's edge. Her single greatness in that last dire scene must cross alone a perilous bridge in time and reach an apex of world destiny, where all is won or all is lost for man, in that tremendous silence, lone and lost, of a deciding hour in the world's fate. In her soul's climbing beyond mortal time, when she stands soul with death or soul with God, apart upon a silent, desperate brink, alone with herself and death and destiny, as on some words between time and timelessness, when being must end or life rebuild its base,
Just slow
alone.
down there for a moment. When being must end or life rebuild its base. And prior to that, he says, where she alone must conquer or fail. He has seen all of this from Mother. What's going to happen? Please continue.
Alone, as on some words being between time and timelessness, when being must end or life rebuild its base, alone she must conquer or alone must fall. No human aid can reach her in that hour. No armored God stands shining at her side. Cry not to heaven, for she alone can save. For this, the silent force came missions down. In her conscious will took human shape. She only can save herself, and save the world. O Queen, stand back from that stupendous scene. Come not between her and her hour of fate.
Her hour must come.
Her hour must come, and none can intervene. Think not to turn her from her heaven-sent task. Strive not to save her from her own high will. Thou hast no place in that tremendous strife. Thy love and longing are not arbiters there. Leave the world's fate and her to God's sole guard.
Now comes this important part.
Even if he seems to lead her to her lone strength, even though all falters and all falls and sees an end,
And only our
and the
death,
heart fails,
yes,
and only our death and night, God given her strength, can battle against doom. Even on a brink where death alone seems close, and no human strength can hinder or can help. Think not to intercede with the hidden will. Intrude not in intrude not twixt her spirit and its force, but leave her to her mighty self and fate.
So, Mother said that there might be a time when she would go into a cataleptic trance. No one should touch her at that time. And of course, they did touch her. They were sure she was dead. They put perfume on her, they dressed her. But when Nolini came up to the room, he asked one question: "Have you touched her?" And when they said, "Yes, we've done all of this," he walked downstairs, never said another word. But we have to know also that we are all human, and we have to have the wideness of an understanding that these men did what they thought was the best also. Champaklal was there, Pranab was there, and the day before or 2 days before, Mother kept saying, "Let me walk, let me walk,
Make me walk.
make me walk." But they wouldn't do. Because they said when they tried it, she turned blue. When Mother asked Dr. Bisht whether she could live to 100, he said, "No, Mother, the body is too far gone." So she knew that she was going. And in that time, she poured so much into all of us. I was there, of course, when Mother left and they put her in the meditation room. It wasn't easy for any of us. We wept. I'll be honest with you, we wept, and we went around and around and around again and again, as often as we could, to see her body one last time. Now she is in all of us. I will tell you what Nolini told me on my birthday. It was one of the most powerful moments in 1979 that I've ever had with Nolini. I had written a 2-page letter, single typed, telling him of all the problems we were going through in Aurobindo. And he said to me, "It need not be like that. She is trying 1,000 different ways." It broke your heart that we could not be wider, freer, more open. But then he became very quiet, and he looked at my wife, Mary Helen, and he pointed to her and he said, "Your body Then he pointed to me and he said, and your body. We think they are different bodies. They are not. They are all her body. She has put a part of herself into each of us. There is a part of the mother in each of us. And we know that. Some of us know it mentally. Some of us know it through the psychic being. Some of us are aware of it when we are in a satsang. We have to keep that foremost in our consciousness. If we can know that even when we're making mistakes or stupid errors, that she is still in us. A part of her is in us. And that part is working out all of the negativity in us, all of the darkness, all of the karma that we've had from so many past births. I can tell you that in my own experience, Mother has lifted so much from me that I could not have done in this lifetime. She will do it for each of us. The more we are given to her, the more she will do it. Things that seem intractable, impossible, are the possibilities of tomorrow. You can ask questions, we can share things. This is such an open satsang that there is no teacher here. We are all her children, nothing more, nothing less. We are her children, yes.
It was with Aurobindo also, no? Because I didn't met them. I came in 76. So sometimes I feel, for me, Mother is physically with me. I felt her touching me. And I think that for us it's more easy somehow. That for you, like when I came in 76, Ashram Mother was desperate. That was in the ashram because Mother is not here more. And for me, it was so clear her presence, so clear.
Yes.
And I say it's much easier for me than for them because they were used to be with her, no? And for me, it's like in Patagonia, here, it's always with me.
But she is so present now that if we just refer to our psychic being, if we just call her into our psychic being, we can feel her. I mean, there's no question about it, is there? It is a virtual throbbing, I would say, when the psychic tries to break out. A little painful at times. I felt that pain. Not much. Amal complained to Mother about it. Mother said, yes, I know about it. It will go. And it went. You know, Amal and I were so close. He was, he was in bad shape and he couldn't walk anymore. So he had to be in a bed in the nursing home. That's where I saw him most of the time. And we would have these long conversations on Savitri. And he would answer all my questions on Savitri. So, you know, as the body is laying in bed, sometimes it gets bed sores. And he got very bad bed sores. And they wrote to me immediately and said, can you find something? And I found a silver, is it iodide? Silver
dioxide. Silver dioxide.
Okay, silver dioxide. It cleared the bed sores up in 2 days. So, you know, he was a very funny fellow.
Yeah.
And he would joke all the time. When he no longer could walk so well and he had to have a cane, He said, I'm an anapestic sort of guy, because an anapestic is three beats in one. So he was two legs and his cane. Anapest. Then another time, and this is the funniest one of all, he begins crying out in his room at full voice, I want to die.
Yeah, I did.
I want to die. And the doctor comes and he says, you're a disciple of Mother and Sri Aurobindo. How can say you want to die? He says, I want to dye my hair.
2 days before dying, she said. 2 days before going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. But his knowledge of Savitri was really extraordinary. The book 2, with its 15 cantos, Sri Aurobindo would not let him ask one question in that book. Nobody had ever been there. Nobody ever climbed that stair, that world stair, and went into all these worlds, these incredible worlds. And only Sri Aurobindo did it. And he would not allow one question from Amal. But Amal asked many, many questions. In fact, Mother called him a moron at one point.
Suggesting corrections.
Hmm?
That's not suggesting corrections in his poetry.
Yes, exactly. For saying, wouldn't it be better to use this word or something? Why are you using these two words? And Sri Aurobindo would knock him down pretty good. Sri Aurobindo's humor is extraordinary. If you begin to read his humor, especially to Nirodbaran, because Nirodbaran was, he was a very, very English-trained doctor. And yes, go
3
ahead.
books actually. One is simply called Sri Aurobindo's Humor. It's a slim volume, around 90 pages.
Hmm.
It's from Nirodbaran's correspondence.
Yes.
There's another one prepared by Jugal Kishore Mukherjee. That is much thicker. I think it's called Sri Aurobindo, the Smiling Master. Yellow cover, but I have not seen it in Shabda for a long time. It's not there. I used to have it, but it's there on Mother and Sri Aurobindo.
And it's the same kind of book that you did with them.
No. The second one is a little, sort of academic study, a little bit, the humor is also tends to go away. I mean, I just had a glimpse of it. And the third main one is the full correspondence with Nirodbaran. But then, it's amazing. Amazing.
It is amazing.
There's still one paragraph left.
Pardon?
There's a paragraph left in the ending.
In?
Canto. There's
Yes.
still a paragraph left.
She wants to read it.
Yes, please do. But what part are you reading?
It's the complete ending.
The last paragraph of the canto.
Of the canto, but that's about Narad. You don't want to read about me. Mother gave me my name in 1972. We knew that Mother was working on the transformation of the body, and we did not want to take her time, because we were reading every quarter in the bulletin her progress in the body. So I entered the room, and she gave me this huge bonne fete. And then I moved over to her, and I put my head on her feet. And when I lifted my head up, she handed me my card. So it was a big card. And I started to get up. And Mother said, "Look at your card." And I had to open it in front of her. And there was my old name and my new name. And then I broke down in tears, and I don't know how long I cried at her feet. So we wanted to go through quickly. She didn't allow that. I had many meetings with Mother on flowers, because when we began the Matrimandya Gardens nursery, we made friends with the chief conservators of forests in Tamil Nadu, with the director of the Lal Bagh, Dr. Mari Gowda, and I said, well, I'm going to do something for him. And I had a group of friends in California, and we would collect seeds of all these great trees. The red flowering eucalyptus, as an example, the cinnamon tree, all of these things. And so we filled a van with these, and I brought them to him, and he was so grateful that he gave me 12 of the finest Hawaiian hibiscus. They were big flowers like that, huge flowers. And when I would send them to Mother, I would stand down by the samadhi as Tara took them to her. And I would listen to Mother exclaim about these flowers. Magnifique, superbe, magnifique, superbe. She was in French, of course. And she named them all for Aurobindo. Beauty of Aurobindo, charm of Aurobindo, realization of Aurobindo, and so many others. And then one day she says to Tara, we need a little bit more universal significance. And so she named them all the new creation. So these hibiscus have two significances: beauty of Aurobindo, beauty of the new creation. Charm of Aurobindo, charm of the new creation. What a moment this was. I sent between 60 and 80 flowers to Mother from the Matrimandia nursery. The most powerful and poignant for me was a lobelia that I got from England. I got the seeds from England. And it was called Lobelia erinus, Cambridge blue, Sri Aurobindo's color. And Mother named it Remembrance of Sri Aurobindo. Another one she named was the myrtle, to live only for the divine. And 60 more that I can't go through in one night, but it was so extraordinary that I encourage all of you to begin to learn the significances of the flowers, to learn the simplest flowers. The zinnia. The zinnia is endurance, and there are many, many names because Mother named by the color of the flower. So the dark red would be material endurance, the light red would be physical endurance, then there was mental endurance, vital endurance, psychic endurance. So we can have a scale of all the flowers by the color. The dullest reds were material things. The brighter reds were physical. The lavender and purples were vital. The pink flowers, always the psychic. The yellow flowers, the mind. And sometimes in the higher ranges of the mind, there would be light blue. And then we got into the supramental, which were orange and gold. So we have a full range just to study the flowers based on their colors. Now, in California, in the desert, I was driving through one day and I saw zinnias blooming in the hot sand with no water for months. That's endurance. Plasticity. The marigold. The marigold is plasticity. It's, Everett Dirksen of America wanted it to be the flower of America, but they didn't. Everett Dirksen. And he was a senator. a very eloquent speaker also. But this plasticity is something that Mother speaks to us about all the time, that we have to learn to be more flexible, not so rigid in our understanding, in our way of life. Now we have a lot to overcome, there's no doubt. We have to overcome all of our training as a youth. Why did we choose our parents? We chose them, they didn't choose us. It was either an accident or something else. We chose them, but we chose them for a specific purpose. And that purpose was that we had to make a progress in that life with them and maybe grow out of it. Now, in India, of course, families are very, very attached to each other. And that can be a drawback, a powerful drawback. Mother wanted all the children in the ashram to live away from their parents. And she said, if they go out on vacation with their parents, all my work is ruined. So I don't know what's happening today, but those are Mother's words. She wanted me to build the gardens of the Matrimandir. And she spoke to me about these gardens. She spoke so profoundly. She said, it must be a thing of great beauty, of such a beauty that when men enter, they will say, ah, this is it. And they will know physically and concretely the significance of each garden. In the garden of youth, they will know youth. In the garden of bliss, they will know bliss. And then she raised her hand and she went like this. And she said, one must know how to move from consciousness to consciousness. I'm 23 years old. What did I know? When she talked to me about the great composers, she would tell me things that no one has ever spoken about. But Mother knew them on those planes of existence. She knew that Chopin's music was available, the most available music on those inner planes that everyone tuned into. And she said, but I don't know why. We would ask Mother questions when we were preparing the first book on flowers, which is called Flowers and Their Messages. Many of you have that book or know about it. Now it has an orange cover, I believe. It used to have went through many different cycles. And so Mother allowed us to ask questions, and we also asked Mother, would you make a comment on each of the flowers that you've named? And this was very interesting because she said, yes, I can do it, but I want to see each flower. And we had to bring flowers from all over to show her. Now 50 or 60 of them are from the West. Mother knew them in Paris. She knew them in Tlemcen. And so those, we just showed her pictures and she knew. But it was an incredible moment because she named almost 900 flowers and gave us a comment on each flower. So we would ask her things. I asked her a question. I asked her many questions, but one question was, we're in the nursery, we're growing these beautiful plants, And suddenly these insects come along and wipe out a month's work in one day. So I asked Mother, is there an asuric or a negative force in the insects that they consciously want to destroy our work? Mother said, it's not like that. She said, they do good and they do bad. That helped me a lot because, you see, the bees pollinate flowers. Even the flies pollinate flowers. There's a flower that has a terrible smell, and only a fly would go inside of it. So the fly goes inside, but the fibers are facing only one way, and the fly can't get out. So it flies around for a few days, spreads the pollen all around, and on the third day, the thing lies flat and the fly goes out. So it's done its job. There are two forms of it. Aristolochia ringens, and literalis, but I don't know. Yeah, you have the flower book? No. No, no.
Which one?
This flower here.
Oh no,
not this one.
no flowers and their messages.
What is the botanical name?
Aristolochia, Aristolochia.
Significance?
No.
Don't know.
Got it? Anybody knows it? Oh, it's a very unique flower. It's like an inspirational flower.
So, is it that if you are in the presence of this flower, you take that virtue?
That's a wonderful question. The answer is absolutely yes. Yes, and that when we get into that consciousness that respects the flower, that loves the flower, that can speak to the flower, because it can reply also, not in our language, but certainly in its own language.
Inspiration.
Inspiration and lasting inspiration. There are two of them. Yes, as I said, it was an inspirational flower. Yes, so I got it. 900 is not so easy to remember, and there are very, very exotic types also. Right now, miracle is fruiting, and you can see the black seeds on miracle. You plant it, and you will get a miracle plant.
Yeah.
Yes. Huh? That's miracle right there. Beautiful flower, blue flower.
Air of Aurobindo.
But it also has two names. Air of Aurobindo.
Yeah.
Isn't the air of Aurobindo a miracle?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. There are only a couple of flowers, only the hibiscus and air of Aurobindo, and I think there's one other one. I don't remember it now, but miracle. I planted at the entrance to the Matrimandir. Yes, you've seen it. You've seen it. Yes, right. And when it's in bloom, it's magnificent. Right now, what is the plumbago, Nilisha? Blue plumbago?
Krishna's Ananda.
Krishna's Ananda is blooming now. Will be followed by miracle. So the light blue will be followed by that radiant blue. Any questions?
So I have a request. If anybody finds the fake plant, hibiscus fake, and constant remembrance of Sri Aurobindo plant looking for.
Well, faith is a difficult one because faith is, we used to call it hibiscus albo variegatus, but I can't find that in the technical literature anymore. It is a flower that is red and white. It has two colors, and Mother called it faith. And it's growing in Merveille. And,
Yeah.
and there are many plants of it actually. You ask Lilo?
Lippy.
Lippy. Ask Lippy, and she will probably be able to give you a plant.
And the other one?
Other one, constant remembrance of Sri Aurobindo.
Constant remembrance.
Remembrance of Sri Aurobindo.
Yeah.
Not constant, remembrance of Sri Aurobindo.
We have in Madhumani
Yeah.
That is
It used to be like spikes.
blue color.
Nana, you have given remembrance of Sri Aurobindo in seed
Mhm.
to
To many
to
people.
many people like Kartik and Kiran.
Yeah, there is a question.
Yes,
You
Kartik will have it at Matrimandir. Kiran will have it at Matrudyanam.
It's in seed form right now. They will plant it.
Seeds are very easy. They grow very easily. And it will reseed also, I believe. It's an annual. So we have different types of plants. We have annuals. That means they have one short season to express themselves. We have perennials, which come up and bloom year after year. From that, we go to subshrubs, little shrubs like that, or even ground covers that hug the ground. There's a beautiful little blue flower. You can see it blooming now. And in many seasons, it's a light blue, and it's called first sign of Krishna's light in matter. Well, for years, I tried to propagate this. Wouldn't work. I failed 100 times. Finally, I realized it's the first sign of his light in matter. What are you trying to make it perennial? So that first sign of Krishna's light in matter is very, very low. And as you go through the Matrimandir in those grassy areas, you'll see that light blue flower now. It's something never to forget. It's a beautiful thing. Then,
This is for coffee.
yes, coffee.
Perfect.
Coffee is the perfect path.
See how they planted perfect.
But Mother said coffee was poisonous to us. Anyway, after we have the ground covers and we have the little sub-shrubs, we have the annuals and the perennials, then we get into the shrubs. The shrubs can be any size. They can be from 1 foot tall to 10 or 12 feet tall. Above that, we get into the trees. But there is another range altogether, and that is the vines. And we have so many wonderful vines that Mother has named. Faithfulness, harmony. Anyone else can remember any vines she's named? Spiritual power of healing. Beautiful, beautiful one. Anyone else? See, we have to all meet and each week share these things. Learn a new flower. Learn a few lines from Savitri. Learn some music.
For the flowers, it would be better if to go out and actually, see them. And
Yeah, but in the satsang evenings we can't do. But you could bring flowers. You could bring flowers and we could look at them and touch them and awaken to their beauty and their message. Because Mother said, I can transmit an experience more easily through a flower than to a man. Wow. And that's why she gave us all flowers. When we went to her, she always gave the men a red rose.
which means
Human passions turned into love for the divine. And she always gave the ladies a pink rose. Psychic love. See how much she worked on us, huh? Yeah. So that's a bit on flowers today. We had a little Savitri, we had chanting. Anything you'd like to ask?
I have some question on Savitri.
You have a question on Savitri?
There are some pages from Canto 1, The Joy of Union, where Sri Aurobindo talks about Savitri, kind of that she's in grief and evil of men, and I'm just like I'm not able to understand those paragraphs completely, and I don't understand what he's exactly talking about.
At this point, Savitri does not know yet that she is an incarnation of the Divine Mother. She's a young girl. She's in her teens. She loves this man who could only live 1 year. And Narad said, that's his karma, that's fate, it can't be changed. And then in this canto, this extraordinary canto, she's considering sati. She's considering killing herself so she can go with her husband into this far beyond. And then, what did a woman have in those days after their husband died? You could become a nun, or there was no other choices. You couldn't marry again. That was not allowed.
Which time frame is this exactly?
From the Mahabharata, the legend and the symbol.
Yeah, actually there her story is told to Yudhishthir by a rishi, but he is telling an even older legend.
Yeah, it's very old. And you know what it was like, or you get some idea what it was
It's
like.
Vedic cycle.
Exactly. So, to help you understand this passage, she is totally in grief. And she doesn't know what she's going to do with her life. And then at one point she even says, forgetting God. You can see it there. She wants to forget God even. And then this voice comes down and says to her, what shall I say? Something like, when I return to the divine and the work for which you came is still undone. Oh, then she awakens. And then she begins to realize that she is much more than this young girl. She is not quite yet realizes that she's not quite yet the incarnation of the Divine Mother, but she agrees to the voice. And can you read that part where she...
501, 502.
501.
No, sorry. 501 is the number in the PDF. In the book it would be 476.
I only have some pictures from the book.
You need to get the full PDF.
No, I have the book, but I don't have it.
Well, we bring it next week. 476, huh?
Yeah, both 475 and 476. I don't know which line exactly. The voice replied, is this enough, O Spirit? That's
yes.
475.
The voice replied, is this enough, O Spirit? And what shall thy soul say when it wakes and knows the work was left undone for which it came? Or is this all for thy being born on earth? Charged with a mandate from eternity, a listener to the voices of the years, a follower of the footprints of the gods, to pass and leave unchanged the old dusty laws? Shall there be no new tables, no new word, no greater light come down upon the earth, delivering her from her unconsciousness, man's spirit from unalterable fate. And then she has to answer to this. But he goes on a little bit. Camest thou not down to open the doors of fate? Do I have my... Yeah. No, okay. I'll do it. Camest thou not down to open the doors of fate, the iron doors that seemed forever closed, and lead man to truth's wide and golden road that runs through finite things to eternity? Oh. Is this then the report that I must make, my head bowed with shame before the eternal seat? His power he kindled in thy body has failed? His laborer returns, her task undone. Then Savitri's heart fell mute. It spoke no word, but holding back her troubled rebel heart, abrupt, erect and strong, calm like a hill, surmounting the seas of mortal ignorance, its peak immutable above mind's air, a power within her answered the still voice. I am thy portion here, charged with thy work, as thou myself, seated forever above. Speak to my depths, O great and deathless voice. Command, for I am here to do thy will. The voice replied, remember why thou camest. Find out thy soul. Recover thy hid self. In silence, seek God's meaning in thy depths. Then mortal nature change to the divine. Got it now? Good. Very good.
Naradji,
Yes.
there is a question from from a friend who's watching online.
Okay.
She's asking whether we can surrender an offer to Divine Mother which she has not named any for this particular flower. In USA, there are some flowers she has not named. So,
Yes.
in that case, how can we offer? She's asking like that.
Everybody knows a rose. Surrender rose.
Yes.
She can surrender with the surrender rose. It's a common rose. It's a rose that's used in perfume. A marvelous rose. And it grows so easily here. There was a disciple in the ashram. His name was Parichand. And Parichand was my closest friend in those days because he was Mother's gardener. And he did the courtyard all the time. And the courtyard has never been nearly as beautiful as when Parichand was there. He would grow a dahlia that big around, close to 14 inches around, pure white. And what is the white dahlia?
Perfect human.
Okay.
Superhumanity. Is it superhumanity? No, aristocracy is the small. Yeah, it is small.
I think it's superhumanity.
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 Printed it on that.
Superhumanity. And you stood before that flower and you knew it was vibrating with that message. Flowers and Their Messages is the title Mother gave us for the first book. The spiritual significance of flowers was done by two other people, very good people, and I did all the horticultural references for that book also. But Mother said flowers and their messages. What is their message to us? And so this lady can offer plasticity, surrender. What was it? Harmony, which grows all over the place. Yes. So there's so many flowers that we can offer to her. But the main thing is that we have to learn that we are offering ourselves. And that's the big one. That's the big challenge. Any other questions?
I have one last question.
Yes, sure.
It's from the same 467.
Mm-hmm.
There are the first few lines. It says, and under arches, misers of sunshine, they saw low thatched roofs of a hermitage, huddled beneath a patch of azure blue. In a
Oh.
sunlit clearing that seemed the outbreak of a glad smile in the forest's monstrous heart, a rude refuge of the thought, and a will of man, watched by the crowding giants of the wood, arrived in the rough-hewn homestead quickly.
Okay, what
So
what don't you understand about it?
what is he talking about when he says
Okay,
forest monstrous heart and the will of a man
sure.
and the crowding giants of the woods?
Okay.
Like, what?
First of all, we'll take that first line. And under arches, misers of sunshine. This is the big trees. They don't let the sun through. So they're misers of sunshine. They're hoarding the sunshine they get. They don't let it get down to the earth. They saw low thatched roofs of a hermitage. Well, what we have to understand here is that Savitri is a princess who lived in Madra, in a palace, the most extraordinarily beautiful palace. Sri Aurobindo talks about the pools, the colonnades, the plashing of the water. Oh, it's a beautiful passage that he speaks of. And now suddenly she's moved to this little forest place where there's a thatched roof, which is the hermitage, where Satyavan's mother and father live. And she has to carry water, start the fire, do some cooking. So we see here what he's telling us. They is her parents, because her parents are bringing her there. See, they brought her in this chariot, drawn by white horses. And they bring her there, and they see these low thatched roofs of a hermitage that are huddled beneath a patch of azure hue. Well, azure is the blue of the sky. So the hermitage, there's some blue that's breaking through the trees, and they see this simple hermitage, in a sunlit clearing. Okay, so sometimes there are these pastures, and the trees are not there, and we have all these beautiful flowers. And Sri Aurobindo gives us that meeting of Satyavan and Savitri. So beautiful. He speaks of Savitri coming, and she's totally captivated by these flowers. And there are all kinds of colors, and bees and butterflies are all around. She doesn't see Satyavan. Imagine that. She doesn't see him. He's standing in the clearing there, just outside the forest. And then the God saves her in time. And she turns and she sees her answering soul. Now, we go on a little bit. So, in this sunlit clearing that seemed the outbreak of a glad smile in the forest's monstrous heart. You know, these forests can be so dark and so dense, and he calls it a monstrous heart. The tigers live there. All the wild animals live there. So it is a monstrous heart of the forest. It's a rude, he calls it rude. Rude means something unkempt, something not very orderly. A rude refuge of the thought and will of man, watched by the crowding giants of the wood. This is those huge trees, the crowding giants of the wood. See, as you go into Savitri deeper and deeper, you will see that if you don't try to use your mind, if you just read the lines, Mother says they will enter you like this. And maybe a year later, maybe 2 years later, you'll see it and, oh, I know what that means. So don't struggle with the mind, but ask as much as you want,
Yeah,
because it's fine to ask.
the context is that I asked mother a question, and basically a few days back I was driving in the forest and I got followed by two guys behind me, and I was very scared after that. And so when I came back, I asked mother why did that happen to me, and I just opened a page and it opened this page and it's talking about exactly what happened with me. I just don't understand that it's talking about the evil of man and monstrous food, and I saw that that's what happened with me. But like why? Like what what did she try to tell me through that? I don't understand.
Remember one thing, never forget it. Call Mother the moment you see any danger. Invoke her, and the protection will be there. I promise you that. Good. I think our time is up for today. Thank you. Thank you all. Namaste, all. Namaste. We can chant Om for a few moments. Om. 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 See the difference when we are closer together, how the sound just embraces everyone. Yes. Well, one day we'll do it again in another venue, but right now, I think the amphitheater is wonderful.
Yes.
Huh? It's very good, isn't it? Huh? And there's a force of unity there. You feel it, huh? Good. Anandi, you have something? Something to share?
Thank you.
Yes, it's a beautiful evening.
Yeah, it's nice to be here. Yeah.
Beautiful
I
evening.
never came before. After
So,
We was close, no? Yeah, but I don't know, I didn't, today I think, no, I have to go.
well, I will read to you to close, Savitri, um, what Amal considered and wrote to Sri Aurobindo and asked him if this was not the ne plus ultra, ne plus ultra, which means um, that there is nothing higher.
No,
It is so beautiful because it is the first major description of Savitri that we have. I'll introduce it first. We have not heard very much about Savitri in Book 1, Canto 1, except that she awakens to her task, and Book 1, Canto 1 ends with, "This was the day when Satyavan must die." So you see, Savitri is written honoring the ancient tradition of epic poetry, where one does not begin at the beginning. One begins somewhere reflecting, looking back. And so Sri Aurobindo is giving us canto after canto that is not the beginning of the story. That only begins with the birth of Savitri, which is probably book 4 already. So now he gives us this first description. It is so powerful. And I'll introduce it here. There was her drama's radiant prologue lived, a spot for the Eternal's tread on earth, set in the cloistral yearning of the woods, and watched by the aspiration of the peaks, appeared through an aureate opening in time, where stillness listening felt the unspoken word, and the hours forgot to pass towards grief and change. Here, with the suddenness divine advents have, repeating the marvel of the first descent, changing to rapture the dull earthly round, love came to her, hiding the shadow, death. Well might he find in her his perfect shrine, since first the earth being's heavenward growth began, through all the long ordeal of the race, never a rarer creature bore his shaft, that burning test of the Godhead in our parts, a lightning from the heights on our abyss. All in her pointed to a higher kind, to another kind, nobler kind. Eyes, near to earth's wideness, intimate with heaven, exalted and swift, her young, large-visioned spirit, voyaging through worlds of splendor and of calm, overflew the ways of thought to unborn things. Ardent was her self-poised, unstumbling will, her mind a sea of white sincerity, passionate in flow, had not one turbid wave. And then begins the passage, of which there is nothing higher. As in a mystic and dynamic dance, a priestess of immaculate ecstasies, inspired and ruled from truth's revealing vault, moves in some prophet cavern of the gods, a heart of silence in the hands of joy, inhabited with rich creative beats, a body like a parable of dawn that seemed a niche for veiled divinity, or golden temple door to things beyond. Immortal rhythms swayed in her time-worn steps. Her look, her smile awoke celestial sense, even in earth stuff, and their intense delight poured a supernal beauty on men's lives. A wide self-giving was her native act, a magnanimity as of sea or sky, enveloped with its greatness all that came, and gave a sense as of a greatened world. Her kindly care was a sweet, temperate sun, her high passion a blue heaven's equipoise. As might a soul fly like a hunted bird, escaping with tired wings from a world of storms, and a quiet reach like a remembered breast, in a haven of safety and splendid soft repose, one could drink life back in streams of honey fire, recover the lost habit of happiness, feel her bright nature's glorious ambience, and preen joy in her warmth and colors rule. A deep of compassion, a hushed sanctuary, her inward help unbarred a gate in heaven. Love in her was wider than the universe. The whole world could take refuge in her single heart. The great unsatisfied Godhead here could dwell, vacant of the dwarf self's imprisoned air. Her mood could harbor his sublimer breath, spiritual, that can make all things divine. For even her gulfs were secrecies of light. At once she was the stillness and the word, a continent of self-diffusing peace, an ocean of untrembling virgin fire. The strength, the silence of the gods were hers. In her he found a vastness like his own. His high, warm, subtle ether he refound, and moved in her as in his natural home. In her he met his own eternity. This is the story of how love meets Savitri. Isn't it so beautiful? My goodness. Thank you all. We do have to go.
Yeah.